Alright, this video has been put off for too long already. There has been a lot of stuff happening which has pushed back these long-term reviews and I don't want to delay them anymore, so let's get started. Hey guys, it's Saga and this is my long-term review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max after using it for 4 months. This phone has been out since November and it has been my main phone ever since along with the iPhone 12 mini. There is a story behind why I have been using both the biggest and the smallest iPhone that Apple launched last year. Sometime in June of last year, I felt that the iPhone 11 Pro Max was just too big for me, so I sold it off and used the second generation iPhone SE as my main phone until the next iPhone was launched. While using the iPhone SE, I really appreciated its compact form factor. So I was sure about getting the iPhone 12 mini when they first showed it on the stage. But then Apple announced their most advanced camera systems yet on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And you guys know me, I really love having the best cameras on my phone. So I decided to get both of them and I have been using them together right from the day one. Basically, you can say that I got the iPhone 12 Pro Max just for its cameras. Since this is a long-term review, I can tell you guys about its durability, battery life and health, long-term performance, and whether or not you should get this iPhone 12 Pro Max based on its cameras over the other iPhone 12 models. Let us start with the size. iPhone 12 Pro Max is a massive phone. With a 6.7-inch display, it's actually the biggest iPhone Apple has ever made. And because it uses a stainless steel frame instead of aluminium, which definitely makes it look and feel more premium than the iPhone 12 and 12 mini, it also makes it pretty heavy. Now, I would have loved to tell you that you get used to the size and weight after a few days. But sadly, this isn't true. Every time you put it in your pocket, or every time you are on a slightly longer phone call, or if you are in the habit of using your phone in your bed, you are reminded of how big this phone really is. Now, part of why I feel that this phone is huge might have to do something with my average size hands, or maybe I am constantly reminded of its size and weight because I am using it in tandem with the iPhone 12 mini. I know the people who are thinking of getting the iPhone 12 Pro Max know that it is huge. And in some cases, that might be the main reason why they are opting for it. But even if that is the case, think about it, because it is definitely not for everyone. Before you go and get it, I would recommend you to go to one of the nearest Apple stores or maybe some of the other electronic retail stores which has this on display and use it there for a good 10 to 15 minutes to see if you can get used to its size and weight. Other than these downsides, there are some obvious benefits of using a bigger phone like bigger display, big battery, better speakers, and according to Apple, since there was enough space inside the 12 Pro Max, they were able to pack in a much bigger main camera and a new type of sensor shift optical image stabilization. All of which we will talk about in detail a bit later on. But before all of that, let us see how this phone has aged in the last 4 months that I have been using it. Looking at the overall phone, I think it has held up pretty well, better than any of the previous iPhones in my opinion. Apple has used ceramic shield glass on this phone, which makes it tougher and resilient against drops. But I am someone who doesn't like to test those claims. At least not willingly. I also don't like any sorts of scratches on the screen, and while making camera comparison videos or while taking image samples with multiple phones at the same time, I handle these phones very roughly. Knowing that, the first thing I did after getting this phone is apply a good quality tempered glass screen protector on it. I have heard other people say that this time, they have seen less scratches develop over their iPhone 12 series phones with normal day-to-day usage. But I still strongly suggest you to use a tempered glass screen protector with your phone to help it against deeper scratches or accidental drops. Rest of the phone has held up pretty well. I mostly use my phone with a case, but for about 20 days I used it without one and neither the stainless steel frame nor the back glass gathered any scratches. The frame, while looking amazing when it is wiped clean, gathers a ton of fingerprints, and because of how shiny it is just impossible to keep it clean throughout the day. That is unless you put a case or a bumper on it. The frosted or matte glass back on the other hand looks and feels really amazing. It doesn't gather as many fingerprints as the frame or as the glossy back of the iPhone 12. I just wish the camera bump also got this frosted finish, because without it and because of how much these lenses stick out compared to the ones on the iPhone 12, it gathers a lot of dust and lint and is very difficult to clean. Now, when I wasn't using it with the case, I did drop it from a small height on its back when I was taking a few shots for a video, but fortunately it survived without any scratches. I think a part of this is because the front and back glass now sit flush with the frame. Since it is not 2.5D curved glass like on previous iPhones, it doesn't stick out of the body, thus making the glass more resilient against drops. I haven't mentioned this before, but I love the design on these new iPhones. Flat edges on the iPhone 5 was my favorite design, and I am happy to see Apple bring it back and refine it to make it look even better. These sides are so flat that it can stand on its own, making it so much more easier for me to take these shots. Now these flat edges somehow makes the phone feel more comfortable in my hands. I think that is because now there is a lot more metal to hold on to compared to the rounded edges of previous iPhones. While I am not a big fan of the size and weight of this phone, I do appreciate how good and immersive this 6.7-inch OLED display is. If you like big displays, this right here is one of the best that you will find on any smartphone. Now part of the reason why this phone feels a lot bulky is the width of this display. Because of the aspect ratio that Apple chooses to use with this phone, it is wider than most of the Android phones with the 6.7-inch display. If it was just a few millimeters narrower, it would have felt much more comfortable in your hands, and maybe, just maybe, navigating through it with one hand would have been a bit easier. Yes, despite of costing over 1 lakh rupees, this phone doesn't come with a higher refresh rate screen. It is still stuck at 60Hz refresh rate. Now yes, thanks to the 120Hz touch sampling rate and the smooth animations, it doesn't feel slow at all. But competition has had high refresh rate displays for over a year now, and it is difficult to believe that Apple with all its money and resources couldn't source adequate number of high refresh rate displays for the 12 Pro series. If I had to guess, I would say they held it back on purpose just so they can have something new to give us on the next iPhones. I'm not sure that this is the reason, but I have my doubts about it. Other than that, this is one of the best looking and most color accurate displays on any smartphone out there. Display is something that you look at the most while using a smartphone, and using this one even for extended period, you will have no complaints about it. You can watch HDR content on it, and there is no off-axis color shift even if you are looking at it from various angles. This is an issue on some of the other smartphones or even on some of the previous generation iPhones. There have been a few complaints about green tint issue when the brightness level is too low. But my device doesn't have that, and it is not a widespread issue, at least right now. With a peak brightness of 1200 nits for HDR content, this display can get very bright, so the outdoor visibility is not an issue. And since it's OLED, it can also get pretty dim when you need it to. Now, I don't know how many of you will go through this or even notice it, but the display does get dim if the phone is getting very hot. This won't happen too often. In fact, only 2 times that it happened with me was when I was outdoor in bright sun shooting 4K 60fps videos on and off for about 1.5 hours. And the phone was getting very hot due to the weather that I was in. As I said, it didn't happen too often, but I still thought you guys should know about it. See, these are the kind of things that you only notice when you have used any phone for a long time and tested all the ins and outs of it. That is the reason why I don't rush out my reviews and take my time with them. Other than this small issue, you will love the display on this 12 Pro Max. And combining that with the stereo speakers, you can have an immersive media consumption experience on this phone. Apple has somehow managed to shrink the size of the bezels ever so slightly, but even after 3 years since they first introduced it, they still couldn't eliminate or even reduce the size of the notch. I know that the notch houses all the Face ID tech, but I think this time, when we are all wearing masks most of the time, they could have given us Touch ID in the power button like on the iPad Air 4 and maybe reduce or even eliminate the notch altogether. I mean, if the technology exists, why not use it to make life easy for millions of people who end up using these iPhones? Now I'm sure they are trying to figure out a way to use in-display fingerprint sensors to make it seamless for us to get inside our phone. But in the meantime, they should have given us a physical fingerprint sensor inside the power button. Now although the phone is taller, they moved the buttons a bit lower so it is slightly easier for us to reach them with our fingers. Other than this and reachability, which most people don't know or have forgotten about, there is no other effort from Apple's side to make single-handed use easier on this massive phone. Whereas we see Samsung and OnePlus adapt their whole user interface to make single-handed navigation easier on their massive phones. I mean, even the numbers on the lock screen to type in the passcode are a bit too high for comfortable single-handed use. While I don't like the size of this phone, I have come to terms with the amazing display that it has, but iOS doesn't utilize it to even half of its potential. There is no way to use 2 applications in a split screen mode, no modifications to app for taking advantage of this bigger display. You can't even change the orientation of the home screen anymore. All of this is a bit disappointing. Going with the 12 Pro Max over the 12 mini doesn't get you anything extra in terms of display, other than things just appearing bigger. That being said, because of how big everything is on this phone, typing on it does feel good and very natural. Now I did complain about some of the features that are missing from the iOS 14, especially on this bigger phone, but leaving those missing things aside, the overall experience of iOS 14 has been very smooth on this phone. There haven't been any major bugs that I would like to report. There was one small issue where for a few days the battery on this phone was draining even when it was on standby, but one of the software updates fixed it and everything is back to normal. On this or any of the other iPhones, the last thing that you have to worry about is its performance. It is snappy and fast at anything and everything that you throw at it. Honestly, the A14 processor inside this phone is so powerful that right now there are no apps or games in the App Store that take full advantage of it. This year, with 6GB of RAM in Pro models, RAM management is better than ever. I don't play games on my phone, but for any of the other day-to-day applications, when you switch between them, they are ready for you in the background without having to load them again. Something else that got a lot better this year is the cellular performance. Thanks to the Qualcomm modem inside, I am getting much better network reception and faster download speeds on 4G. That is not just with this phone, with all other iPhone 12 models as well. There are 5G antennas on this phone, but right now there is no 5G network in India. If you get this phone now, by the time 5G is available in your area, your phone will be ready for those faster download speeds. Haptics is something that can be easily overlooked, because whenever you go to buy a new phone, how good the haptics on that particular phone is not on the priority list of anyone. But when you use a phone with good haptics, like any of the iPhones for example, going back to any other phone becomes very difficult. Haptics on this phone are so good, not just when you get a call or message, but even when you get a notification, when your timer or alarm goes off, or even the minute clicks when you set your timer are just a treat. You can feel every click when you move this dial, and there are different intensity of vibrations when you're moving each of these dials. You won't understand how good these haptics are unless you experience them. These are small things, but you do notice them when you use a phone for a long time. Now let us move on to my favorite part, and the reason that I got this phone in the first place. Its cameras. Traditionally, Apple has put the same best cameras on all of their top of the line or Pro series iPhones. They did this with the iPhone XS and XS Max, 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, but this time they decided to put their most advanced camera system on only one of their Pro series iPhones, that is this iPhone 12 Pro Max. From the first look, it might look like a similar triple camera module as on the iPhone 12 Pro with a LiDAR sensor on the bottom right. But the camera module and the lens openings are much bigger on this phone. The main camera has a 47% larger sensor and it uses sensor chipped OIS instead of more traditional lens-based OIS that we see on all other phones. The telephoto lens gets a 65mm focal length against the 52mm one on the iPhone 12 Pro, so this lens gives us a 2.5x optical zoom compared to the primary camera. The ultra-wide lens and the camera are same as on the other 12 series phones. With advanced hardware, you also get Apple's ProRAW image format on this year's Pro models. All of this made people more interested in the 12 Pro Max. But are these cameras really that good and better than the others? Well, the answer to this question is a bit complicated. The cameras on this 12 Pro Max are really good. In fact, they are a huge improvement over the 11 Pro Max, and quite possibly the best, most consistent and reliable camera on any smartphone. But so are the ones on the iPhone 12 Pro and even the ones on the iPhone 12 and 12 mini. I have a dedicated video where I shared a lot of image and video samples from these three cameras, and I talk in much more detail how each of these cameras perform in different lighting conditions. But I also have a separate video comparing three cameras on this phone with the dual cameras on the iPhone 12 mini, and if you check that out, you know that unless you look very close, there isn't really that big of a difference between these cameras in daytime. Now the iPhone 12 Pro Max is definitely better at taking portrait shots. Thanks to the LiDAR sensor, the edge detection is incredibly accurate, and thanks to the 65mm focal length, your portrait shots have a very unique look to them. It is also better in some low lighting conditions. It doesn't need to fire up the night mode as often as the 12 mini, and when it does, the images are captured in much less time compared to the iPhone 12 mini. While these things sound great to some people, in my opinion, the difference is not enough, and I would be just as happy taking my images with the iPhone 12 mini. To really get the insights on how good the cameras on this phone are and how big of a difference there is between its and 12 mini's images, I suggest you check out both its dedicated camera review and comparison with the iPhone 12 mini. I will leave a link to both those videos in the description section right below that like button, and also leave a card to them on the top right corner of your screen. Now something that I desperately want Apple to fix with this and even the upcoming iPhones is the weird lens flare issue. In many of the daytime shots, you can see this annoying lens flare. Sometimes you can get rid of it by placing your hand over the phone, but it is extremely annoying in the low light shots. In most of the low light shots, when you have light source in the frame, there is a weird reflection of these lights somewhere in the shot, which many times even ruins the complete experience of these great cameras. So this is one of the major things that I would like Apple to fix with the next iPhones. And I would also love to see a Pro mode in the native camera on these Pro iPhones. You might have noticed that other than mentioning a small bug at the beginning, I haven't talked too much about the battery on this phone. Well, that is because there is not too much to talk about. It just lasts and lasts. Compared to the competition, the size of the battery even on this 12 Pro Max is minuscule. Despite of that, it lasts me comfortably for well over a day and a half. This is all thanks to the excellent efficiency and power management of the A14 processor. You can look at my battery stats from the last 10 days. Only on 5 days I managed to use 50% of the battery, and on those days I got a screen on time of 6 hours or even more. So I can easily get a screen on time of over 10.5 hours on a single charge on this phone. This is on mixed usage of LTE and Wi-Fi, as 5G is still not available where I live. And if we look at the battery health, it is still at 100%, while the battery on my 11 Pro Max had got down to 98% by this time last year. Now we all know that none of the new iPhones come with a charger in the box. While I get the fact that it is going to be better for the environment in long run, I am just not going to sit here and defend Apple. Not giving a charger in the box is just wrong, especially in countries like India where people don't have the chargers from their previous iPhones because this is most probably going to be their first iPhone ever. I tried out the MagSafe wireless charger, but I didn't like it and I ended up returning it because my phone got too hot while charging with it and it took more than 2.5 hours to completely charge this phone. Now despite of all the complaints that I have about this phone, especially about its size and bulk, I actually like everything else about it. If you are in the market for an ultra premium phone, iPhone 12 Pro Max is one of the best ones that you will get. But whether or not it is the best value iPhone is another question. That one according to me is the regular iPhone 12. It offers you 85 or 90% of what the 12 Pro Max does at almost half the cost. If you want me to make a full-on comparison video between these two phones, let me know in the comments. If you like big phones, premium build materials, amazing battery backup, the best cameras on any iPhone yet, and most importantly, if you have the budget for it, you can get the iPhone 12 Pro Max and never look back. For me, while I love the big display for watching videos and editing images, bigger battery and slightly better cameras than rest of the iPhone 12 series phones, I am finally definitely done with the max-sized iPhones. Well, that is it for this long-term review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.